Hi everyone, it's Shaheedah Hill, the Real Realtor, getting you over the hill to home ownership. And I'm so excited because everybody's been asking me to do this video about getting your credit score. So I've named it How to Get the Perfect Credit Score. So there are some basic things that I want to go over for everyone so that everybody's at the same page as far as credit education. When I was a teacher, I taught high school business. My master's is in business education. And how I used to explain it to my high school students, because they didn't know much about credit, and that's a major mistake we as parents make, because we don't tell our children early enough about what credit is. So the first time they're even hearing about credit was in my class, and they might be freshmen or sophomores, even seniors. So how I used to explain it was, and this could be helpful for a lot of you, it's like your transcript, because all of them had transcripts basically. So they, like your high school transcript or your college transcript, is all the information on it. And people with 4.0s get the best scholarships and maybe opportunities after high school. People that have like 2.0 GPAs or 1.0 GPAs, they may not have as many opportunities. And that is how credit is. So when we're dealing with credit, okay, your credit report is that transcript. It is everything that you've done regarding borrowing money in your lifetime. The same way that a high school transcript has all of the courses that you've taken and the grades from those courses on a transcript. So those are the things, how credit is a lot like your high school or college transcript. It's a history of everything you've done so far. Now, a lot of people just know their GPA, their credit score, but they have no idea of what's on the transcript. And that transcript is their credit report. So I'm going to go over some basic things to get you to get a perfect credit score. And part of that is just you having the information to know what is impacting your credit in the first place. So please, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel for new videos every week. So let's get right into it. The number one thing I want you to know is, what is the credit score range? The lowest credit score you can have is a 300. The highest credit score you can have is an 850. So we need to have that in our mind. The lowest is 300. The highest is 850. And I'm going to tell you how I got an 800 or 805 credit score at this point. And it goes a lot on this. So think about your syllabus in school. Remember syllabus or your syllabi in college or in high school? They had like, oh, projects are 25%, homework is 10%. Okay, this is the credit score criteria. Okay, it's behind me. I changed my desk. 35% is payment history. 35%, that's the highest percentage, is payment history. Number two, the amount of money you owe. How much money do you owe? Number three is the length of your credit history. How long have you had credit? Okay, the length, 15%. And then you have new credit. How often are you applying for new credit applications? And then the fifth factor is credit mix. Do you just have a credit card? That's only one thing. It's not a mixture. But if you have a credit card, a mortgage, a store card, an auto loan, that's a mixture of credit. And they like to see at least 2, maybe 3 mixes of credit. They generally get a higher credit score if you have a few different things than if you just had one thing. So that's the credit mix. But the most important portion of this, like 65 of your credit score, is the amounts that you owe and your payment history. So we're going to get into each one of those. Now, just some housekeeping things. You have to know what's on your credit report. That is given to you for free. The government makes credit reporting agencies give you your credit report, one copy of it per credit bureau every 12 months. So not calendar year, every 12 months. There are 3 credit bureaus, the major ones: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Again, that's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And those, if you go to annualcreditreport.com, and all of this information will be in the description, but if you go to annualcreditreport.com, that is the one place that the federal government has authorized for you to get your free credit report. Places like Credit Karma and Credit Sesame, all of those places, they can monitor for you, but they're really there to monitor your credit report and then try to sell you something, either credit report, credit watch. They're trying to sell you something eventually on one of those sites. This site is not necessarily like that. You can just go on there for free and get your copy of your credit report. So after this video, the first thing I want you to do, if you haven't already, I want you to have all 3 copies of your credit report so you know exactly what's on it. You cannot fix your credit if you don't know what's on there in the first place. So that's very important. Okay, so we know the categories, we know what we're looking at. We also know where to get our credit report and what our score can be. You have 3 credit scores. So a lot of times I'm talking to people that call me or email me and I say, well, what's your credit like? Oh, my credit score is a 660. One of your credit scores might be a 660, but what are all 3 of your credit scores? That is very important to know. When you have your credit reports, I'll tell you where to get your free credit score. Sometimes you will have to pay. So you get your credit reports, annualcreditreport.com will give you the option to pay for your score from each of the 3 credit bureaus. But if you don't want to do that, then if you do have a credit card, most of the major credit cards are giving you a free credit score with the credit cards. And some of them use Experian, some of them use Equifax, some of them use TransUnion. But if you have a credit card, I'm almost 100% certain all the major credit cards give you that for free every month. You may have to log in to look at it. You may have to look at your statement to see it, but most of them are giving you a free copy of your credit score. If they're not, or you don't have any credit cards yet, you can buy a copy or buy your score for a nominal fee. Now, places like Credit Karma, maybe Credit Sesame, they will give you a score, but usually it's not the same score that when you're applying for a mortgage, they're looking at. It's a little bit different. Their criteria are different. The things that they're looking at are different. So it's not the actual specific score from the 3 credit bureaus. But if they're giving it to you for free and you don't want to pay, then go ahead and use that as kind of a guide as to what your credit score is probably, okay? But just know, to get the actual one, probably the best place to go is your credit card if you have one, to get the actual credit score. So how do you go from good credit? Okay, so when you get started, say you have no credit, let's start with that. You have no credit. You're just out of high school. You're just out of college. You've never borrowed money before, but a lot of us might have student loans. That's the first debt that you might have if you've never had a credit card. So you have borrowed money in the past, and they give you 6 months after you graduate to start paying that debt. So that might be your first opportunity to start establishing a good credit history, is by paying or beginning to pay your student loans as agreed, or by beginning to pay your credit card as agreed. The only way you get negative marks on your credit report are the 2 primary ways: paying your bills late or not paying your bills at all. Let me say that again: paying your bills late or not paying your bills at all. Those are the primary ways people get into credit problems or get low credit scores. So let's talk about payment history, which is 35% of your score. If you've paid late, and I'm going to tell you some ways you can clean this up as well, but this part needs to be education up front. So you've paid late. You might be 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late. The later you are in making your payments, the more harmful it is to your score, okay? And the more recent it is, the more harmful it is to your score. So as things lengthen, then, you haven't paid for 30 days, but then you pay. That's not as bad as, I haven't paid for 60 days or 90 days. That's worse. And you will see that on your credit report if there are any late payments. So not paying at all or paying late are no-nos. So to begin, let's start with that first factor. To begin developing a good credit history, payment history, you have to pay your bills on time every month. Every month, you must pay your bills on time because that's 35% of your score. If for some reason you just forget and you have to sit down 2 times a month, 1st and 15th, sit down to pay your bills or put them on auto pay so you never forget. Okay. You have to have a budget so you know what's going out, so you can anticipate that payment every month, but automate all of your payments or religiously sit down and pay them 2 times per month. So you never miss a payment. Okay, so that you have to get into some kind of routine so you don't have any late payments. After this, I'm going to tell you how you can improve if you've already had late payments. But let's go to the basics, people just starting out. So you're paying all of your bills on time. Number 2, amounts owed. So if you have a credit card, so say you have a $5,000 balance on your credit, let's do $10,000, it'll be easier. You have a $10,000 balance on your credit card, but you owe $9,000. That means you borrowed money almost up to the limit. That's not good. Okay, credit cards don't like to see that your income cannot support your lifestyle, because when you have a lot of credit card debt, that's telling to a mortgage company this person cannot live off of what they make. Okay, let me say that again. When you have high credit card utilization, it's telling the credit card company this person cannot live off of what they currently earn. Otherwise, why are you putting it on a credit card? Now, it's different if you're paying it off every month, that sort of thing, but most people are keeping a balance. So if you're keeping a balance every single month, that's like a red flag to the credit card company. This person is living above their means because their income cannot support their lifestyle. So you're going to have to get that credit utilization, those amounts owed, down. They like to see below 50%. Then the next tier is below 30%. And then either 10% or less or 0. So let's go back to that $10,000 credit card. They want to see 50%, which is $5,000 or less owed, and then go down to 30%. That'll be $3,000 or less as far as a balance. And then if you go down to $1,000 or 0, that's ideal. That's what's going to get your credit score to the highest level. Okay. So credit utilization, that's that amount owed. Or maybe you have large car loans, or you have large student loans. All of those things are saying like, okay, this person has a lot of debt. Do I want to lend them another $200,000 on top of that? Okay. And if you haven't watched my video on can you afford a house, your debt to income ratio, calculate that debt to income ratio, because again, if you have too much debt, you can't afford another debt of a mortgage on top of the debt you already have. So you need to be mindful of that. So if you're trying to improve your credit score, you want to go down to 50, 30, 10, 0 on your debt. Okay, so let's go to length of credit history. I've had the same credit card since college, one of them, okay? I've had the same credit card since college. So that's almost 15 years ago or more that I've had that credit card. And so now I have a long length of credit history. So if I'm doing the same thing as maybe a 20-year-old, or 25-year-old, we're not going to have the same credit score because they can't get that length that I have. Okay. So the length of your credit history matters. So even if you pay off credit card debt, leave the credit account open, because once you close it, you're taking away the length. And that's 15% of your score. They want to see how you handle credit over a long time period. So if you've only had credit for like a year, maybe you haven't gone through that much for them to see how you'll deal with credit over the years. The longer your credit history, the better your score. The next one is new credit. The last two count the least. So if you were trying to improve your credit score, I would start with payment history, amounts owed, and we can't really do anything about length, but I just wouldn't close any accounts. So let's go to credit, new credit. Don't apply for a lot of credit cards at once. It makes the lender think, oh, they must not have enough money. That's why they're trying to, open up all these credit cards. Their cash, their income isn't covering what they need, so they're applying for a lot of credit. So if you need apply for one, you maybe apply for another one, but don't try to apply for a lot of credit all at once, especially before you're about to buy a house. Bad thing. If you're trying to establish a credit, open up a card. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then just start paying that card regularly and, go from there. Don't open up a lot of credit all at once. Those are bad hits, and they will be hard credit pulls on your, or hard inquiries on your credit report. And then the last one is credit mix. You want to show them that you can pay different types of debt. I'm not telling you to get a car loan, because car loans are typically not good to have. But say you had no credit and you were going to buy a car cash, and say the car costs $5,000. Could you say, okay, I'm going to take out a car loan for the $5,000, make a couple of payments, then pay it off? Maybe. So make a smart plan. Car payments are what's stopping a lot of people from purchasing property, because those car payments are too high. You don't need a car payment. Either drive the same car you have, purchase a car cash, look at your family member's car and see if they'll sell it to you. Try to avoid getting a car payment before you buy your house, or at all. So I've told you how to start off to get perfect credit or really good credit. Follow all of these rules. But life happens, and maybe you didn't know all this stuff prior to opening up your first credit card or acquiring any debt. So now you're at the point where I made some mistakes. How do I clean it up? The most important thing I want to tell you, everything comes off of your credit report. Negative things, stop reporting as long as you're not using it anymore after 7 years. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act says the creditor must, or the credit reporting agency must, remove it from your credit report after 7 years. And so 7 years, it comes off automatically. So, and it impacts your score less the longer you've had it. The closer it is to 7 years, is not impacting your score that much. So say that you have a 6-year-old collection that you never paid. If you go back and pay it, I'm going to pay off that collection from 6 years ago. It's going to raise my credit score. It may not be affecting your credit score that much at all. So using that money to pay off that 6-year collection is not the best use of your funds. So when you're trying to improve your credit, start at the most recent and then go back until your credit score is where you want it to be. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you clean up things you've done in the past. For example, a foreclosure typically is not really affecting your credit score after about 3 years after a foreclosure. So you're talking about a foreclosure. That's one of the biggest things you can do. Typically, you can be back in the 700s, depending on where you were when you started. You could be back where you used to be. So say you foreclosed, you had a 700. It may drop your score to the 600s. After 3 years, you'll be back at 700s, assuming you've done nothing else to damage your credit during that time. So things like foreclosures, bankruptcies, I'm not going to focus on that much. When you file for bankruptcy, they will tell you, the attorneys and everything, how your credit will be impacted. So I'm not going to focus on that as much. But before you file for bankruptcy, make sure you understand fully how it affects your credit. But foreclosure, evictions, and collections, those are accounts you just didn't pay. You stopped paying. If you have a foreclosure, a repossession, a collection, you stop paying a debt at some point. The older that debt is, the less it's affecting or impacting your credit. So you want to say, okay, do I have any recent collections that are affecting me over the last year, 2 years? Now, there are a lot of sites about should you pay collections, should you not pay collections. A lot of people say once it's on there, has already impacted you. So even if you pay it, it may not improve it as much as you think, if at all. However, some lenders, even if they see that collection on there, they're not going to lend it to you because you haven't paid it off. So I'm going to give you some links on how to deal with your collections, but I would only pay your collections if, number one, they're going to delete it from your credit, which is very difficult to do. or what it's going to help you if the lender says pay this off, and that will help you get qualified for the loan. So you can kind of hold that money or wait with collections, because it's going to be very difficult unless they are going to remove it altogether. So I'm going to have a link about collections, but if you look at your credit report and you have recent collections, you may have to wait until those things either naturally stop affecting you as much, or, and I'll tell you kind of a trick to do when you're applying for a mortgage, what you can do to see whether or not it's going to impact you to pay that collection off. Okay, so number one is we're clearing up bad stuff. Is it accurate? So the first thing you should do is it accurate? Because 70% of us have inaccuracies on our credit report. You can dispute the charge in writing. So say that you Sprint said you owe $250 and it was really Sprint said $250, it was really $245. That's inaccurate. They have to remove any inaccuracies from your credit report. So you get your evidence together and then you write them a letter. I'll have a link below to some sample ones. Put it in writing. Do not dispute online, because everything's electronic now, so it's not like a real person reading it. It's probably a bot reading it once you do it online, and they just spit out, no, it's accurate. So if you do it where you have to write it out and somebody actually would have to read your letter and then dispute it, if you dispute an inaccuracy, the credit reporting agency, or not credit reporting agency, the creditor has 30 days to respond to your dispute. If they do not respond in 30 days, it automatically has to be removed from your credit report. It automatically has to be removed. So a lot of people that pay for credit repair, they're really paying for people to send dispute letters on their behalf. So you can do that yourself. Go ahead and dispute anything on your credit you feel is inaccurate with your evidence of why it is inaccurate. And if they don't respond in 30 days, you get it off your credit report. And then you can do that at least maybe 3 times, see if that works, to try to get those things off of your credit. Another thing you can do, so let's take a car payment, for example. You lost your job about 2 years ago. Your car payments were late, okay? But you were able to catch them up, and now you're paying on time. So you can write your car company, or you can call them, or you can write them and say, you know what, my late payments back in 20 whatever are impacting my credit score. I've been paying on time for the last year. Would you mind removing those late payments from my credit report? That's called a goodwill letter. They don't have to do it, but because you're a good client now and you face some difficulties in the past, they may just remove it from your credit report. So if you have instances like that where you had a rough patch and you had some late payments, but now you're paying on time, you can ask them to remove those from your credit report, either in writing, or you can just ask them over the phone. Try to do both. Try to do whatever you can to clean up some of the things on your credit, because right now, hopefully you're paying everything on time. If you're still paying late, skip this video. But you need to make sure, okay, do things the right way going forward, but take some time and clean up things that you did in the past that you didn't know any better, or you had like really hard times and you couldn't pay. Okay. So the 3 things you can do, let me say them again. You could dispute any inaccuracies. You can write goodwill letters to try to get those things removed, and you could pay for delete. But if you pay for delete, make sure that you're getting in writing ahead of time that they are going to delete this collection from your credit report. Get it in writing before you pay anything, okay? And then once you have that letter in writing, then if you go ahead and pay, only pay by check, money order, check or money order, so you can track that it's been paid. Do not give them any electronic access to your account. None. No electronic access to your account. That's how you're going to begin to clean up your credit report. But I would start from most recent and then go back, okay? And I'll give you that tip that you can work with the lender to help you clear your credit without paying anybody to help you. All right, so what else? So how do you build your credit? So if you have no credit, then that means you never, ever borrowed money. You can get a secured card, and begin. And a secured card is basically you depositing money with a credit card company and you basically borrowing your own money and paying it back, borrowing your own money and paying it back. And you should pay it in full every month in order to start building this credit history. Discover has a good secured card. I'm going to link that below. This is not an affiliate link. They just have a good card, and I'm going to put that on the bottom. So what else do I have? All right, so I'm now going to answer some of the questions and tell you how you can work with your lender. So say you go ahead and do a pre-qualification and you want to know what's best for you to do. A good lender will look at your credit. If they don't approve you, they can look at your credit and say, I would work on this, this, and this. Because a lot of lenders have credit models and they can kind of tell you at what point would this person be able to qualify for the loan. So they may tell you, don't worry about this, don't worry about this. These are the things that are impacting your score the most. And that could be your plan that you need to get started as far as rebuilding your credit. So it's a way of getting a plan that you don't have to pay for. You can just work with the lender, but you will have to do an application with the lender for them to advise you about that. Okay, I'm just going to finish up right now with the last questions. My phone, it got full because this is my longest video. So how do you keep a good credit score? Number one, you pay all your bills on time. You have no late payments. That's, again, 35%. No late payments, pay everything on time. Keep your debt utilization low. Show lenders that you really don't need their money. You can live off of your income. So keep your debt utilization under 10% or zero, but don't close your cards because that's your payment history. So that's number three. Don't close old cards. So you just leave them open and you get that credit length. That can improve your score because you have a length of credit. Also, if you are worried about identity theft, that sort of thing, you can freeze your credit so you don't have to worry about somebody messing up your score. So you can freeze your credit with each of the 3 credit bureaus. And then don't co-sign for anybody. So a lot of times when you have good credit, specifically in your family, maybe you're looked at as a co-signer for other people. When you co-sign for someone, you're automatically, if you wouldn't buy it yourself, then don't co-sign for anybody. Because when you co-sign for somebody, even though you're not the primary person, the credit sees you as one of the primary people. So that happens a lot when people have co-signed for other people's cars, their homes, and then when it's time for you to use your credit, either they've damaged it by not paying, or your credit you have more debt than you would normally have, even though you don't have the advantage of that car or that payment. So I would never co-sign for anybody. So don't co-sign if you want to keep a good credit history. And I think that's it. There was another question about medical debt. Medical debt is treated a little bit differently from the credit bureaus. So number one, when you're dealing with a doctor, they don't automatically report you to collections. So I would work really hard with that doctor's office or that hospital to negotiate your payments, negotiate the debt down, use every option that they have first. And then the credit reporting agency typically does another 180 days before they report it onto your credit. So try to work it out with the doctor or hospital ahead of time before it gets reported to your credit. And then lastly, a lot of my videos, I recommend that people get at least 3 mortgage quotes before they make a decision as to what lender they're going to use. Now, do this again. A lot of people ask me about my advice for you is to get 3 mortgage quotes, and they're scared that that's going to impact their credit negatively. Now, a hard inquiry when you're getting credit applications or mortgage applications will impact your credit, typically about 5 to 10 points. But if you are applying for the same type of thing, so that's a mortgage. So if you're applying for a mortgage with more than one company, the credit reporting agency only sees that as one hard credit inquiry as far as your score is concerned. So you could apply with multiple places and it would only impact your score total that 5 to 10 points. The higher your credit score, the less, if it's even less than that, it might be 2 to 3 points or something like that. So don't be afraid to quote with more than one person because you're scared it's going to impact your score. Because the mortgage because the credit reporting agency knows you're applying for the same kind of credit, it only impacts you once. So thank you so much for watching. I hope it answered a lot of your credit questions so you can be on the path to getting a perfect or definitely excellent credit score in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye.